Hi, and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Honesty. Thank you for sticking with us through the delay there. Got off to a little bit of a late start for some technical difficulties, but I'm excited to be joined again. I'm sorry. I'm excited to be your host, Greg Brahe, and an atheist. Um, as Joey pointed out in our last show, Clash Course, I may need a new tagline, so I recommended perhaps, and I'm joined here by my co-host, the unconventional pastor, Mr. Bob Graves, and he's a theist.
Yeah,
How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing okay. I've been having a real groggy day. Yesterday I had a headache all day. Was overtired. Slept good last night, but I'll tell you, all day today I've been sleepy. In fact, I just woke up from a nap before the show.
The weather does that to me, and whenever it's
Does it?
rainy or dreary out, I want nothing to do or want to do nothing but nap and lay around, which sucks in this time of year in Wisconsin because that's just about every day.
I
But
think I've been so busy last several days that I was just getting overtired and all caught up to me. But maybe that's what happens when you're 62. I don't know.
got a bad
I
case of old there, Bob.
Could be. The truth is, it is what it is, and I'm not going to try and understand it either. It just is, right?
Well, today I don't know. I sent you a message on Facebook before the show started with a link that it's on io9.com. The article is titled "The 12 Cognitive Biases That Prevent You from Being Rational." And I thought we could spend a little bit of time looking into those because I know specifically lately Dr. Jones has been talking a fair amount of time about confirmation bias, which
Yeah.
is of course one of and the first listed bias that people deal with here. Um,
Let me pull that up. Yeah.
so
Okay.
for those who may not be familiar, confirmation bias is of course the tendency that humans have. Now this is again. The 12 cognitive biases that prevent you from being rational. This is a generalized statement to all people because these are known biases that are parts of the way that humans reason, things that we cannot necessarily avoid doing, and therefore we need to be mindful of and conscious of and um, examine ourselves through as many different avenues of objectivity as we can, whether that means self reflection, peer review, or any other manner that we can to ensure that we are limiting the amount we allow these biases to impact our judgment. Now, of course, if we're depending upon other humans, they're subject to the same ones. So it's fun how that works, but
Well,
this is
they
why
may
we
be,
have.
they may
I'm
be
sorry?
subject. They may be subject to the same dynamics, but fortunately, their biases will be headed in different directions.
Right, exactly. They're subject to the same biases, but their biases are not in. They don't manifest in the same ways, which is why it's good to use other people and specifically people that come from different frames of reference. I find I use the term echo chamber quite a bit
Hmm.
when I'm criticizing different groups and things that I've been a part of because I find that you often, especially on the internet, get one of two things. One is either sort of an arena or a gladiatorial arena where it's nothing but constant opposition and clashing, and it's very tribal, one camp versus the other, or an echo chamber where
Yeah.
you have one point of view expressed explicitly, and any dissent is quashed or even banned and simply censored from being there.
I,
So,
by the way, I've just pulled up this article, and I find it kind of interesting that it begins by saying the 12 cognitive biases that prevent you from being rational. I would have expected to say the 12 cognitive biases that prevent us from being rational.
right, and perhaps this title might be a little biased in that respect. It's great observation there. So, I mean, it talks about how, of course, the brain is an incredibly powerful computational machine, but we don't compute things in the same way that a computer does, where it's a simple the input output type function. We have all kinds of different mechanisms that are playing or in play while we're coming to decisions, and a lot of
It's
those
chaos.
are. Right. Yeah, exactly. Very chaotic. And they have to do with our past experiences, our memories, our genetic predispositions, our evolutionary history, our limitations as humans as far as phenomenological paradigms, things that we can't get beyond. For example, I think it's later in, but it talks about, um, and I might even be wrong about this being included in here, but the inability that humans have to interpret very large or very small numbers. That because we just don't have a frame of reference to think about what 100 trillion is, nor do we have a frame of reference to think about what 10 to the negative 17th really means when we talk about numbers. We're middling beings, you know. We work in the
I
scale
can
of
give
maybe to
I
a
can give
million.
you a I can give you a good picture of 10 to the negative 17th. Every time you look into a mirror, you never see yourself. You're looking at your past.
That's true.
Yeah.
As a matter of
And
fact, you never see your current environment either. Even when you look around you, you're seeing
it
a
takes
moment in the
time
past.
based on the speed of light for that image to get to you. And so you're really seeing what it looked like nanoseconds ago, right?
Right, and of course, your the time for you to compute it and for it to make sense. These
Right.
are
So
fun little
do you
things
think
about
that's
neuroscience.
do you think that's good a good illustration of 10 to the minus 17th?
I think so. However, I think that that might even be. I'd have to look, but that might be and probably is much larger than 10 to the negative 17th if we're talking in terms of seconds. It might be 10 to the negative 17th days, perhaps. I don't know. It, of course, depends on what you're going to multiply that by. But the 10 to the negative 17th, if we're talking about, a nanosecond is only 10 to the negative third, or yeah, 10 to the negative third.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
given the speed of light, it does move along pretty fast.
right.
So,
I think it's more the computational side of it that slows us down, our reaction time in our brain. That
sure.
that light is. You're probably right on that. The time it
There's
takes
more
for that light
latency
to
in
get
the
there.
brain than there's in the light, no doubt. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to. So, of course, the first one again is confirmation bias, and that the confirmation bias is the tendency for us to basically just ignore evidence that doesn't support what we already believe, and to, or at least to put a lower weight on that evidence, to value it to a much lesser degree than any evidence that.
I agree. I agree with you that you've defined confirmation bias correctly, but it seems to me that in the article here they've defined it incorrectly.
Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about here as well.
Oh,
Is
really?
how,
I,
how these articles are great because they bring up these things, but you can never trust a single article either because, of course, this writer has their own bias. As a matter of fact, the it's not the next one. The next one is in-group bias. I think we've done a fair amount of covering or are covering the in-group out-group dynamics related to the way humans reason. It's a great one to look into. But the reason that I really wanted to talk about this one today was I think it's the fifth one, two, three, four, fifth one down. Neglecting probability. This is the one I read it. And I went, I got to talk about this on the show today because here it says
probability. Okay, yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
so what this article says here is very few of us have a problem getting into a car and going for a drive, but many of us experience great trepidation about stepping inside an airplane and flying at 35,000 feet. Flying, quite obviously, is a wholly unnatural and seemingly hazardous activity, yet virtually all of us know and acknowledge the fact that the probability of dying in an auto accident is significantly greater than getting killed in a plane crash. But our brains won't realize or release us from this crystal clear logic. It says, then it clarifies here with a link.
hold on a second. Hold on a second. You say our brains won't. I mean, don't you think there are a lot of people who, although they might feel that way initially, but there's people flying all the time, and they've grown quite accustomed to settling into this reality of the odds.
Sure. Well, there's a few things in that statement that just irked
Yes.
me right away in reading it, and that was, he makes this generalization first of all, in saying, and hasty generalization, by the way, is a logical fallacy, not a cognitive bias, but it is related to a cognitive bias. The the hasty generalization that he makes here is that people are afraid of flying and not afraid of driving. Now, one of my closest friends is very afraid to drive. He's suffered from severe anxiety, and it's a very difficult and arduous task for him to come through. And then the statement following this is flying, quite obviously, is a wholly unnatural and seemingly hazardous activity. Right, because humans are naturally accustomed to flying down a highway at 60, 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's just
But
it's
I
odd.
think flying, when you push an airplane through the air with the shape of the wing, I think this is an entirely natural phenomenon that the object you're in is flying. I mean, I would say it that way. But some people are afraid of driving, not because of they're worried about the odds, but say like I know some people who are extremely ADHD and they're so distracted.
Hi, welcome back. Sorry, we appear to have had a bit of a power stutter at the studio, so we all got disconnected. Bob had to reboot his computer. The issue locked him out of something. So I will be picking up where we were just off, and I have to admit that I could not hear most of what Bob just said. If you guys could hear it, but I'm gonna have to pretend he didn't necessarily say it. I don't know. So we were talking about the cognitive bias of neglecting probability and the things that upset me about the way that this author wrote it. So I had said that it drives me crazy that, first of all, he generalized from his own experience or is generalizing that some people have this, therefore all people do, and not recognizing that there are some people who are terrified of driving just as much. And he's right to an extent, though. We do neglect probability, that we have a tendency very much to be more afraid of things that are creepier or scarier in some way. Like the idea of a plane crash makes us feel very helpless, whereas a car crash, we're we're driving, and of course, if a plane crashes, you know that that's pretty much instant. You've got a one-way ticket out of here in almost every type of plane crash, whereas car crashes have a wide variety of different outcomes. But the author does say that he cites statistics here. Statistically, we have a 1 in 84 chance, or 1 in 84 chance of dying in a vehicular accident, as compared to a 1 in 5,000 chance of dying in a plane crash. I think that's stated a little odd as well in saying that we have this chance of dying in a car crash versus dying in a plane crash. I think what he means is that in the when you are in a car, the statistic, or I guess the by causes of death among humans, there is a 1 in 84 chance that that is a car that causes it versus a 1 in 5,000 chance, or he does say other sources indicate odds as high, I think he meant low, as 1 in 2,000 or 20,000 chance of that cause of death being an airplane versus a car. So that seems like, yeah, we're neglecting probability. But the reason I took issue with this one in particular, driving me nuts, is I get behind the wheel of a car usually at least twice a day, if not 3 times. I mean, yeah, sure, there's days where I don't drive at all, but on average, I get behind the wheel of a car twice a day. I think most Americans do, at least. Americans have a slightly different lifestyle than other groups, but we have this vehicle that we jump in and out of and casually take to the store, or we jump on the highway. I drove 3 hours today home from my family place up in the North Woods of Wisconsin, and this 1 in 84 chance of dying in a car crash, it means that cars kill people, or 1 in 84 people. Whereas the idea of a 1 in 5,000 or 20,000 car crash means that cars kill 1 in 5,000 to 20,000, or I'm sorry, airplanes kill 1 in 5,000 to 20,000 people. It looks like we have Bob back. Bob, I'm just doing a little bit of a lesson in statistics here and why this drives me nuts. To finish my point here, I think that this seriously neglects the amount of time people spend in these situations. Now, if we weigh these out based on the amount of time the average American spends in a car in their lifetime versus the amount of time the average American spends in an airplane in their lifetime, we are going to see a massive difference in a weight of these numbers. So when we have a 1 in 84 versus a 1 in 20,000, what is the difference in that?
Basically, they're comparing the lifestyle of getting into cars versus the lifestyle getting into airplanes, rather than the amount of time spent in them. I agree with you. Yeah. When you think about the amount of time, so if you're going to fly briefly, well, the odds of a plane crash in any given trip are never change. But the overall safety of the habit is pretty good. What's amazing to me though in this numbers concept, what are they calling it? Oh, neglecting probability.
Mm-hmm.
Is this? how many people, without hesitation, get into an airplane to fly someplace so they can give a speech about how dangerous terrorism is?
That's a beautiful little bit of irony there as well. I personally appreciated when I was in Jamaica earlier this year, telling people that there was somebody who was afraid of sharks, and I cited the statistic that you are more likely to be killed by a falling coconut when you are in the tropics than to be killed by or attacked by a shark. And literally within moments of saying this, a coconut fell from the tree within feet of where we were standing. It was the most beautiful demonstration of how our fears are irrational based on things that creep us out and weird us out and that are uncomfortable. And I mean, the author tried to get to that in saying that flying is a wholly unnatural and seemingly hazardous activity, but frankly, being in a car is not natural in any way to the human condition until we invented cars, what, 100 something years ago? So
Chances are, while you're in a vehicle, if there's going to be a fatal accident, the amount of time that passes between the moment you're aware that there's a fatal accident potentially occurring and the moment you're dead is quite brief. Hopefully, but in a plane, people imagine that I'm going to make my descent to the ground, all the while knowing it probably won't help to jump just before we hit the ground. You know? But so I think it is true that it is more gruesome to think of dying in an airplane accident than it is in a car, although neither of them are very pleasant thoughts. Um, uh, you know, and the same thing is also true of shootings. We've taken a look at these mass shootings, and we've certainly had more mass shootings, but and that's not a good thing. And I don't mean to dismiss it by any means, but still, the number of people who are killed by the abuse of a gun. And I'm not a proponent of the kind of gun control that is usually suggested. For one thing, I find both sides to be extremely reckless and ridiculous on the gun control issue. Both sides, I find to be that way. Personally, maybe I shouldn't have said that without getting into it, but
well, we've covered gun control a bit in the past, so anybody who would like to search our archives for that, feel free.
Yeah, look it up. I don't know that it's indexed, but they'd have to, well, that's not a bad thing. Maybe they'll just have to watch all our episodes.
Right, exactly. Well, I think there's a way that it does search through the transcript a bit of, I don't know. I might be wrong on that, but I think it does indicate what was spoken in the transcript. So if you look for inspiring honesty and gun control in a single YouTube search, you might find it. I don't know. Might not.
Yeah.
I agree that there's all kinds of this inability to properly weigh statistics in the human condition, and that is, I think, what the author was trying to explain here. But there's more, of course. So we've talked about confirmation bias.
It could be clarified that the inability to understand statistics, by that we could mean several things. The inability to appreciate that they apply, or the truth is, when I've studied statistics in 3 different college courses, and I found that it was interesting that a lot of people they just don't understand it. You start getting into combinations, permutations, and probabilities, and things like that, and they're like, their eyes go glassy. It appears to require a certain comfortable aptitude. And so I think what happens is that it's not so much that people don't appreciate statistics, they don't understand statistics. And so they're really making judgments based on their own personal substitution for statistics, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I think, beyond just our academophobia, if you will. We do tend to just gloss over things when they get too technical. And try and don't even put in an effort to understand. I mean, I think that we're all guilty of that when it's something that is outside of our familiarity, even if it's not technical, if it's just something, if somebody starts talking about food that I personally am entirely and completely ignorant of Indian food. Just I've had it like once in my life, and I don't remember any of the terminology behind it. So curry,
we love, we love it. We love it over here. Yeah, curry and cumin and stuff like that. In fact, it's every so often I make an Indian-ish. But for Indian-ish, I just throw stuff together, making sure there's a few Indian type spices in there, and we love it. We had a neighbor who was working as a waitress at an Indian restaurant, so we started going there just to say hi to her, as it were, and to have a good night out. And we loved it, and so we fall in love with a lot of it, isn't it? You should do more of it.
I'm sorry, I just glossed over. You were talking about Indian
love
there.
Love it. But, by the way, here's something statistically that can warp your mind if you don't have a good aptitude for it. If you've tossed 7 quarters up in the air and each one has come down heads, the likelihood that if you toss an 8th quarter up in the air, that it'll come up heads is still 50-50. And yet,
that's the one 2 up above. It's I think the 3rd bias in this list, the gambler's fallacy.
Oh, but then that still doesn't change the fact that the odds of getting 8 heads in a row is still different from all that other stuff. Because now we're talking about the likelihood of the sequence, whereas if you've already got the sequence done of say 7, and now you're looking at the next sequence, the next item in the sequence, every item of the sequence is still 50-50, but the likelihood of the entire sequence is not. So that becomes kind of brain messing when you stop to think about the way combinations and permutations work.
Yeah, and what's funny is that us humans, or we humans, are very prone to doing that, to looking at things in a retrospective and saying, how unlikely was that? What are the odds of that? And saying, oh man, and trying to calculate it. But frankly, what are the odds of anything happening? If this is where chaos theory or complex systems analysis really becomes valuable, is when we consider what are the odds of me being here to do this show today. It depends on how far back we look. Of course, if we look back to the technical difficulty that we had earlier in the show, then that probably reduced the odds retrospectively of it coming back up.
You weren't here.
Right. But I mean, if we go back far enough, we have to look at, I was the one that made it out of however many million sperm that fertilized or tried to fertilize an egg one day. So that the odds right there of my very existence.
I've heard that as an insult, by the way.
Right.
Have you ever seen that?
You were the fastest.
You're trying to tell me that of all those millions of sperm, you're the one that won? I saw that in a cartoon somewhere, and I thought it was terribly funny, but
it's great because we don't recognize that we do this only when we feel like it's appropriate. But frankly, we could do it to any moment, any experience at any point. So the only relevant numbers are the ones that say how frequently does this happen to people in general, and you are a person in general. Therefore, if it happens to 1 in 1,000 people throughout their lifetime, you had about a 1 in 1,000 chance of that happening to you throughout your lifetime. That's regardless of why it exactly happened to you, because as soon as we start analyzing all of the factors that were associated with why that happened to you, that's when we get into the astronomical odds.
To me, that's even a very bad question. Why me? To me, the question, why me, is an illegitimate question unless you're also equally open to why not you.
Right. Or why you?
If I come down,
why anybody?
If I come down with cancer, I could ask, why me? Well, why not me? I mean, people come down with it, and it's not always predictable. And although there is a statistical odds of a person coming down with it, how am I? I'm not necessarily targeted, nor am I exempt by that. And so the question really, to me, is, I find the question meaningless. But of course, I only find it meaningless because I've actually stopped to think about it. Before I stopped to think about it, why me sounded like a very good way to whine, you know?
It does. It's a great way to whine about things, and the only real answer to that is because you're human and you exist in this world and things happen. I mean, it's I hate to appeal to the bumper sticker from the '70s, but
Yeah.
things happen. Um, so we do have a viewer comment that just popped up on that one. That
What are the
said
odds of
to
that?
you, right? Well, it's to you, Bob. Why not me? That's a great reverse psychology strategy to use on God.
I,
Uh,
I imagine it would be. I'm not sure exactly how they were applying it, but yeah, yeah. I'm not sure how they would apply it, but to me, it's just a great question whenever you're thinking of why me. Um,
Well, and the other, yeah, I think I wanted to go back to that gambler's policy, sorry, or gambler's fallacy a bit. I've been bouncing around here, but we tend to look at things as if they influence the future and saying, well, this just happened. So sort of the reverse of what we were talking about with all of the astronomical odds that something actually will happen. We look forward and saying, well, this hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. I've lost 18 hands of poker in a row. I have to win the next hand. And that means, if I'm playing Hold'em, I'm going to drive this seven deuce offsuit as hard as I can because I have to win by. No, that's silly because the odds of winning with that hand are worse than winning with any other hand before it starts. So um, you have to treat every situation in an individual fashion. But the flip side of this gambler's fallacy is the people who make assessments like, well, the lottery is a great example of this. I very firmly believe that the best way to understand the lottery is a math tax. I've heard it called a stupidity tax. I don't personally appreciate that one as much as the statistical illiteracy tax would probably be the better way to put that, because we look at lotteries are run by the state. It is a form of taxation where we are taking money from people, and that's their purpose. They give
the
money
house,
back.
the house wins.
Right, exactly. The house always wins. There is no way that you're ever gonna like take the state down with the lottery because it's designed to not ever let that happen. But the problem is people play the lottery and say, well, I can never win if I don't play. And somebody won or somebody will always win, and the odds of winning are well, I don't know. It's weird because they apply this with lottery different than they do with other things. They to do that, why me if they get struck by lightning or hit by a car or get cancer or something of that nature. But why not me is the opposite. I think that they use with the lottery. Somebody's going to win. Why not me? And they look at these massive odds related to they're trying to calculate what has happened to us and saying, well, the astronomical odds of that ever happening to me are just so weighted against me that look at where I've come today. And people do the same thing with the lottery. You won the lottery. What an amazing thing. It's astronomically weighted against you. You have a 1 in 300 million chance or whatever the numbers are. But they fail to recognize that it is incredibly unlikely if I go and buy a single lottery ticket that I am going to win the jackpot Powerball tonight or this week. However,
Likely if you buy 5 lottery tickets every week of your life.
Right. It's statistically, it greatly increases my odds of winning by buying 5 every week of my life, but it's still astronomically weighted against me. But when we use these astronomical terms, I think it neglects to recognize the weight that we can have. Maybe if we go from astronomical, we should go cosmological or multi. I don't even know how to phrase this. But what are the odds of nobody ever winning the lottery? If we went a year straight and nobody hit the jackpot.
I'd buy the next ticket.
Right. Because of course, after after a month of nobody winning, what is that lottery at? I mean, that jackpot, everybody's buying tickets and more tickets. So if you went 6 months, just imagine the huge amount of money being spent on this. And then still nobody winning when
You know,
you'd
there's
have
this.
as many people buying tickets as you have or possible number combinations to play soon enough.
There's some people who have entertained the notion that there's really only one human being, and that we are consciously going through all these different iterations of being human. That you are me, I am me, everyone is me, we're all me, and we're just experiencing this through different facets of self, through all this. And if I'm to accept that, that means that one way or another, I've won every lottery there ever was.
I like that. I've also heard it said, a good friend of mine used to buy a lottery ticket every week, and I did tell him, I'm like, man, this is killing me. This is a tax on those who don't understand statistics. And he went, what are you talking about? I got a 50-50 chance. I win or I lose.
Ah, now I'll tell you what. I'll be honest with you. I don't do it all the time, but I buy lottery tickets. But uh, to me, that sense of why not me. I know it's a long shot. I'm not counting on it. I recognize it's money. Very little. There's hardly any difference between that and taking a $5 bill and just tearing it up and burning it. But I'm fortunate enough to be in a situation where I don't do everything frivolously, but I can do that. I mean, to me, sometimes if I pay $3 to take a joyride and it's over, in a park and it's over in 5 minutes. I guess I'm not into it, but it's as a form of entertainment. So I'm not thinking that only idiots would buy them. Of course, I'd have to think that because I do buy them from time to time. But I think it's stupid to think that, oh, I could do this. This could really happen.
Right, to bank
yeah,
on it in any real fashion.
but
If anybody is buying lottery tickets with the thought that they are going to win, that's, I
this
think, where it becomes a gambling problem.
yeah
Versus
this this is my retirement plan.
right. Well, and it's interesting to say that because I look at I've certainly bought lottery tickets. They're a favorite gift of mine to give people too. That here I wasted $5 for you for the most part, but there's a chance.
How
I just gave you $1 billion, or well, not that, but I gave you a lot of money. But they and there's also, I think, we in America at least buy licenses to do all kinds of things. A license to drive, a license to travel abroad. Even, I mean, we pay for a passport. We buy licenses to burn things in our yards. I look at a lottery ticket and many times as a license to dream. That it gives us the opportunity to sit around and go, well, what would I do if I won? How would I? And it's a fun, it makes it less hypothetical because there actually is, as incredibly unlikely as it may be, a chance that the things you're speculating about might become an opportunity you have tomorrow.
Did you
So
see the movie Dumb and Dumber?
I did
I
love that
love
movie.
that. Yeah, I love that one scene there where he's trying to talk. Jim Carrey's trying to talk. Oh, I can't remember her name now. The actress into liking him, and she's saying, like, this ain't gonna happen. It's and he asks her for the odds, and it's like 1 in 1,000. It's more like 1 in a million, or something like that. And he looks kind of dejected and forlorn for a moment, and then suddenly, full of hope, he says, "So what you're saying is there is a chance."
Yes.
I
Yes,
love
exactly.
Uh, and of course, the stupidity or the dumberness, I should say, of that is I thought very entertaining. I love that. Jim Carrey is a riot, by the way. The guy's got gobs of talent. He's amazing.
Well, I
What's the
feel
point, by the tonight? I mean, what is the point of looking at some of these things? Do we have a is there kind of a life lesson or a general observation that we would want to pull from this, or is it just something we find entertaining ourselves? to
Well,
chat.
there's a little of the latter, certainly, but yeah, I'd love to revisit this post again next week to talk about some of these other fallacies because the life lesson that I really would like to convey here is that there certainly are fallacies, and we've talked a fair amount about confirmation bias lately, or others in the New Covenant group have, but the real lesson here that I'd like to make as a take home is that we're all subject to a variety of different biases, and that this show is called Inspiring Honesty, and I really look at that as intellectual honesty as much as many other forms. And intellectual honesty, I think one of the best ways to understand it is to recognize that you are not as smart and infallible as you think you are, and neither am I.
And unfortunately, Dunning-Kruger means that those of us who are smarter will learn that lesson, and those of us who are not as smart won't.
And those of us who are not as smart and won't learn that lesson also will be the ones who may exercise a form of, let's see, what would be the
myth of certainty
bias here, the projection bias. I don't know which bias it would be to reject. It'd probably just be confirmation bias to, of course, reject that the Dunning-Kruger effect actually exists. So can you teach somebody that somebody who is subject on the lower end of the Dunning-Kruger effect scale?
No, you can't. You can't.
Are they capable of?
You can't, and that's so sad. I mean, for example, if there is something, suppose you have the ability to do four-dimensional math in your head, and you're talking to somebody who can't even do it on paper. You can't prove to them something that can be proven using four-dimensional math. You can't prove it to them because they just look at all the scribbles you've done and they don't understand it. It is not for them proof because they cannot appreciate the solidarity of what it is you've done. And so the truth is, the aptitude missing, part of that Dunning-Kruger effect is this: my incapacity to see what it is I can't see and to see that I don't see it really diminishes my ability to assess whether or not I really have it going for myself. And you cannot prove to an idiot that they don't get it. You can't.
And I believe in the immortal words of Mark Twain, what may be what we need to close on tonight. One should have, and I'm paraphrasing here, so I apologize to Mr. Clemens, but one should avoid arguing with a fool because you might confuse your audience.
Yes. You know what I discovered? Mark Twain and Samuel Clemens say a lot of the same things.
Yeah, those two had a lot of common. Fan. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been Inspiring Honesty. Just stick around after this for The Unconventional Pastor with my amazing co-host. I'm gesturing here. Is he to my left? I don't know. This guy, Bob Greaves. And of course, after that, for The Place with Dr. Michael W. and Rhonda Jones and whoever else is going to be on their program tonight. I've been out of town for the weekend, so not able to stay on top of things. But I do know next weekend, Dr. John Shook will be at our studio and will be a part of a lot of different things that we'll be doing. So very excited about that. Join us again next week and have a great day.